in France to keep the money there. No money's going out to Italy or Germany or England or Spain. Everything France needs must be in France. Well, how do you do that? Well, you've got to get production going. The French are an agricultural people historically. They're not on the cutting edge of technology and science and production, and he will try to jumpstart that, try to put money into these industries to get France started into these things. And of course, the best way to do it is through that fashion. Once you get this fashion industry rolling, of course, all of Europe wants that fashion. You want French fashions, and of course, that really brings the money into France. Well, for that, you need raw materials, and that's where the colonialism comes from. You'll send all these boats out with explorers and armies, and they will be grabbing raw materials to bring back to France for French industry. So that's what this is all about. This is the new economic theory, and of course, France blossoms first in this. Well, let's talk about Louis XIV. He is a great king. The man, he's not really a genius as such, but he is hardworking, dedicated to France, and that's what's important. He calls himself the Sun King, and this comes from one of the costumes he wore. If you want to see what kind of costumes, outlandish costumes, he wore one in yellow, and he was decorated as a sun, and people just loved it, so he started calling himself the Sun King, and it kind of fits. The sun, the ancient symbol of authority. Sun brings life. Sun can also bring death, and he liked that idea. His catchphrase, L'État c'est moi. L'État, France, c'est moi. France, I am me. If you talk about France, you talk about Louis XIV. As the king goes, that is France. If you want something with France, you talk to Louis XIV. L'État, c'est moi. The state is Louis XIV. Well, let's talk about religion. If he is Catholic, and he is Catholic, then his belief is that you should be Catholic also. There should be one king, one law, his law, and one faith, his faith. And so no Protestants will ever come around him. You will never bring your religion, if you're not Catholic, around him. By 1685, all he ever sees is Catholics, and so he revokes the Edict of Nantes. It's not a religious decision as such. He's not a crusader. He's not hating of Protestants. He just believes its time is done. There are no Protestants left. Well, the effects on France are tremendous. It doesn't take but a couple of years for Protestants to not have any rights, and their property starts getting denied from them. They start losing their businesses, and they will get out. There will be about 200,000 emigres, people leaving France. And of course, who are these Protestants? They're usually pretty wealthy people. The nobles will stay. Nobles won't leave France. They'll just kind of stay and have their own little private chapel and act like they're Catholic. But these emigres are middle class, city folk, and they will move to other cities. And again, these are the Huguenots or Calvinists leaving France. The effects on Europe is tremendous. Other countries get a middle class, all these wealthy people moving to their cities, and they're welcomed actually. People like having wealthy people come into their towns. These people aren't homeless or anything or poor. And then the other effect on Europe is that Louis XIV looks like a Catholic crusader. We don't think he is historically, but to the rest of Europe, he appears to be punishing Protestants. And this is going to play a role in his wars, because he's going to fight lots and lots of wars.